Okay, so what we need to talk about today is something that we all already know, but I think we don't really believe in our hearts. Well, Chomrip Sur, brothers and sisters, and Arun Suste, or maybe Sayon Suste, depending on what time of day you're watching this. Welcome to Mission Zero. If this is your first time here, my name is Shawn, and this is The Word with Friends, the show where we take a deep dive into language and communications in order to bring us all closer together. Today we're going to do something a little bit different than we normally do. Normally we take a deep dive into one word. Today we're going to take sort of a shallow dive into two words that I think are absolutely critical to understand the difference of, and I don't think we mark that enough. We don't really observe that difference enough. And those are the words fail and flaw. Okay, so the first word that we're going to talk about today is the word fail. And fail comes from the Latin fallo. And fallo means to trick or to deceive or to cheat or disappoint. Now, isn't that interesting? How did that become the idea of fail? It's because at the time in our history when we adapted this Latin word into our English language, the idea that you could just screw up without it being intentional didn't really exist. We were a little too self-flagellating for that. The problem is, I think we carry that through right to today. We are convinced that when we screw up, it's because we were just not trying hard enough, or we were purposely failing, or maybe that we had masqueraded ourselves as someone who wasn't going to fail. And that's just so not true. We have got to find a way to let that go, because failure is absolutely critical to our growth and to our learning. The second word that we're going to talk about today is the word flaw. And flaw comes from a Norse word, flaga, and flaga means a flake or a chip or a thin layer. Now, this is interesting because what it's really saying is a small wrongness, a small thing missing or not quite right. Really close, but not quite there. The interesting thing about that is that it is not necessarily something that can be perceived. It is a thing that's not quite ideal, but it's also not crippling. You don't look at the cabinet and say, that's a 1/16 of an inch light on the right side. I just can't have this cabinet anymore. And the reason that that matters is we know that we have flaws. We see nothing but our flaws. I talked about that a little bit in Battle Cry on Monday. But we overinflate the value of those flaws. A flaw doesn't mean that you're broken, that you are a throwaway. It doesn't mean that you're worthless. A flaw just means that you're human. And do you know what flaws do? As in furniture, they give you character. Our flaws are what give us our diversity and our uniqueness. You can't beat yourself down about it because there's just no good that can come of that. And the problem with how we view ourselves is that we conflate our flaws with our failures. And we think that everything we do wrong, every failure we make, just highlights our flaws and just proves how worthless we are, how incapable we are. The thing that I want us to know today is that that's not true. Your failures don't define you. Your failures grow you. Your flaws don't denigrate you. Your flaws help to make you who you are. And so there's my exhortation for us today. Keep reminding yourself that your failures do not mean that you are a failure, and your flaws do not mean that you are worthless. We are accepted and we are loved by God. Flaws and all, failures and all. And if God loves you and says that you're worthy and values you, despite all your failures and flaws, who are you to argue? Take this today, take whatever part of this message strikes you and use it to become an even you-ier you than you were before. And may God pour out the blessings of acceptance and truth and perspective in your life so that you can see your failures and your flaws for what they are, not what they aren't. And I love you so, so much. Peace out.